It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
We're the Insiders. So, Scott, we've got a Supreme Court race coming up in the spring. People sometimes forget this is not all about the fall election next year for governor in Wisconsin. Who's going to be the candidate on the conservative side? Chris Taylor is out there on the Democratic side. Are we going to have, or on the progressive side? How's that going to frame out? Are there going to be new candidates? How do you see this going for the conservative candidate in the election?
Well, Maria Lazar, I think, is going to be the conservative candidate. She's a judge here from Waukesha County and is very well liked. And I think she's going to be a very strong candidate in this race. You know, when she announced, I saw that Chris Taylor's spokesperson immediately said, "This election will decide whether or not we're going to have a hyper-partisan extremist on the state Supreme Court." And I thought he was making the case for Chris Taylor, but no, apparently he was talking about Maria Lazar, which is malarkey. Maria Lazar has never run for partisan office. Chris Taylor was a Democratic legislator from Dane County. She was one of the 2 or 3 most liberal people in the Wisconsin State Assembly. And talk about, differences in backgrounds. They're both judges, both on the appellate courts, right? But Maria Lazar has twice as many years as a judge, doesn't have any partisan background or any legislative background. That's what Chris Taylor's story was. Chris Taylor was a lobbyist for the abortion industry, and I mean, at that same time, Maria Lazar was a prosecutor. They're both well educated. They both went to good law schools. Maria Lazar went to Georgetown, not known for being a right-wing law school. I think that the Democrats are trying to run an old playbook here that does not fit with this candidate. And I think that they will find it difficult to say a woman who's never run for partisan office is hyper-partisan, or to say a woman who has more experience is somehow going to be, and has a long record to look at, is somehow going to be extreme and out of line on the Supreme Court. Maria Lazar is highly respected as a judge. People wanted her to run for this in previous elections, and I think she's off to a good start in this race.
Well, even if you accepted everything that Scott said, and I don't, I think that Chris Taylor is a thoughtful lawyer and scholar, and actually a very bright person, which I wouldn't challenge about Lazar. I don't know Judge Lazar, but she's good on all those fronts. But here's the fundamental, and this is going to dominate for the foreseeable future. This is the spring race has always been skewed to the Republicans in the past, up until about the last 5 years. Now, it is hugely skewed toward the progressive side or the Democratic side. And you have seen the last 2, or has it been 3 races where the progressive candidate, Janet Protasiewicz, whoever the Democrat or the progressives put up, and it has unfortunately become a very partisan thing, they win by more than 10 points. I don't think, much as Chris Taylor, I think, is a very strong candidate, has a great personality, will play well in people wanting to relate to that individual and who will be deciding cases for them. But it doesn't really matter. She's going to probably win by 10 points or more. That's what's happened in these spring races. And I don't see how Republicans can change that dynamic. And it also is not going to help because, again, we have this Trump environment, which sadly dominates everything. And that is not going to be good. And this will be yet another opportunity for people to send a signal that we're not happy with what's happening in Washington, D.C. So, and here's the final thing. This is a biggie. The Republican right-wing incumbent decided not to run. Why was that? It's for the same reasons that I just cited. She knew she couldn't win and didn't want to go out losing. And Lazar has adopted the language of the right wingers on the court, saying that we have to get our court back. We have to get back to the law. doing all these right-wing extremism things that the court is not real. No, the court is very real. And here's the final thing. They're not going to get the majority back. Even if Chris Taylor were to lose, which will not happen, they would still be 4-3 down. What smart investor on the Republican side is going to say, hey, let's go spend $50 million to go beat Chris Taylor in a race that she's likely to win by 10 points? Who's going to make that investment on the Republican side? And by the way, it's become partisan. Let's admit that. The Republicans aren't going to make that investment. I'm sure she'll have a well-funded campaign, but it's not going to be the way the campaign was before. Democrats know that she's going to be on the court. There will be people investing that want to be on the side of the new justice who's going to be there and could become a dominant force because she has been in this battle and she will understand how to take these issues on. So I feel quite strongly that this is a campaign that has really nowhere to go in a spring election.
So
For
I
the
think
Republicans.
you asked the question, who would invest in this race when it doesn't determine the majority? I think most long-term political investors understand that you win back a majority one seat at a time. It's clearly the strategy the Democrats are employing for both houses of the state legislature. While they bragged about winning it all in one fell swoop, that didn't happen. So now they're saying it's going to take us a couple of cycles to get back to that. That's exactly what a smart investor would do, I think, on the Republican side with regards to the Supreme Court races. I also like the fact that Maria Lazar is kind of choosing to do a throwback. She's saying, I'm sick of the fact that these races are now partisan, that these races are now filled with out-of-state money, that it's tens, 50, $100 million for a Supreme Court seat. These things used to be decided based upon who's the most qualified candidate to be on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. There obviously were debates about people's judicial philosophy, but we didn't have people prejudging cases and saying, here's how I will vote on this case. And I like what she's trying to do. I think it's difficult to pull off, but I think if she can get people back to the way we used to do these races, you can change the math of this. But we're going to see. It's going to be another, there'll be a lot of money spent on this race as there has been in the last couple as well.
Yeah, I find it quaint that you think she can pull this off when our president just put out a meme of the Democratic leader with a sombrero and a mustache, a racist, that you think that we can return to that era, or Maria Lazar thinks we can return to that as President Trump does this. You've got to you know this as well as I do, and I know you got to make the best case you can, and it's a really tough one here. I mean, really tough one. But how, in what world, with Trump doing what he's doing at the national level, can you say we're now going to step back? We're just going to let our judges decide based on the issue. That message is not going to resonate when everyone knows that that's not where we're at. And by the way, I will note for the record that it was Republicans, the conservatives, who dragged us down this extremist road. It's will and it's all of the things that the right-wing Republican agenda is. I mean, the guy who wrote Project 2025 that Donald Trump said he had nothing to do with and he disavowed it all. He's the guy running, OMB, whatever it is. He's the guy running the government. I mean, nobody buys this anymore. It's a matter, frankly, of which side are you on and who turns out. And let me go back to the baseline. In spring elections, it's changed. It's now a Democratic or progressive base. And I'm sorry to say that Maria Lazar will see that happen in this election.
I think there's some nostalgia for the way we used to do this. We'll see.
See you next time.
You've been listening to The Insider with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.